Hey everybody, welcome to the 24th Comic Art Fans Update. I'm Bill Cox, of course, and it's 2 days before Christmas, so I thought I'd try to do something a little festive with the lighting in the background. I don't think I really succeeded on that, but red and green, I tried. So today's CAF update will cover the period of December 14th through the 20th. Before we get into that, there were a couple things that I wanted to make you aware of that we've been doing. And first is the server that I told you we bought a few weeks ago. I did put that in place on Saturday. It's not in production yet, but at least it's set up at the co-location. So probably starting right after the first of the year, I'm going to start experimenting with moving some of the dealers over to that server. And then once I've confirmed that this giant leap between SQL Server 2008 to SQL Server 2019 is going to work seamlessly, we'll move CAF over. It's probably going to require me to shut CAF off temporarily for maybe an hour, or put some kind of a message up to be down, that kind of thing. But it's going to need to be done just because we have to basically transfer all those database files over to the new server, spin everything back up, and there's no point in keeping the site live during that hour just because I don't want to lose any comments, views, those sorts of things that might happen. So it's probably simpler for us to just do that. But I'll certainly give everybody a week's notice before we go ahead and pull the plug on the site while that transfer does happen. Probably, honestly, will be late in January, just knowing the schedule that I've got in front of me. Another thing to note is we do have the best of 2020. Submissions will start probably somewhere around the 4th or 5th of January. Now, the thing to remember, though, is we show you artwork that you added to CAF during the year, so the calendar year from January 1st through December 31st, 2020. So what you need to do if you want to have any pieces that are going to qualify and that you're going to be able to share, you've got to get those posted before midnight Eastern Standard Time so that they will be in the list to select. As you recall, the process we put in place last year was much easier. Yeah, as far as selecting artwork, you didn't have to re-add artwork again. This is basically pulling artwork from your CAF gallery, and but it does limit it to things added in 2020. So if you post something 1 minute after midnight on New Year's, you're out of it. Luck, you're going to have to wait till the best of 2021. So get everything posted before the end of the year. Outside of that, I think that, the only other big thing that we've been doing is Colin has taken over writing the Monday through Wednesday reports now, and he's been doing a great job. I'm still doing a little editorial on them, but it's freed me up to do a lot more things with video chats and whatnot. 2 weeks ago, I did that recording with the gentleman who owned Comic Arts Gallery in New York back in 76 to 79. And we did some reshoots actually last weekend. So I'm working on putting that video together right now. It was a really cool interview. He spent time with all the guys from the studio and had shows for Brightson and Jeff Jones and KALUTA, and did a lot of other group shows during the 3 years that he was open. Wasn't a success story, of course, at the end of the day, but it was pretty cool to, he has a lot of photographs that we're going to be able to share from that. Really cool, crazy Halloween party for Brightson's closing when he had his exhibit there in 1977. It was really, really fun stuff. So I'm looking forward to being able to get that together and sharing it with everybody. So with that out of the way, I want to get into the sales update for the week of December 14th to the 20th. The total sales between the auction houses and the comic art dealers was $771,000. And that's pretty strong. It's not as high as it was the week before, but the week before was skewed because of that one sale from ROMITA Man for that Iron Man subby cover that sold for $400,000. So let me pull up the dealer stuff here. So with that in mind, dealers were 471,000 of those sales, down from the 659 the prior week, but that's only 180,000. So that clearly that one cover just kind of skewed all the results from that time period. So this first piece is Avengers number 40 cover. Artist is Don Heck. This was sold by Panel Page Art for the asking price of $75,000, or sorry, $70,000. So next up is a complete issue, King in Black, sold by Felix Comic Art. This is Ryan Stegman. Of course, the complete issue sold for $50,000, which is pretty impressive, and I believe the high water mark for complete issues sold by anyone for new artwork. This is a Mark Schultz cover sold for $15,000 by Albert Moy. Albert gets his logo in front of everybody again. And next piece is also sold by Albert Moy. It's the John Byrne Legends, the collection cover. It's sold for $13,000. Next up is a cover by Rich Buckler. This was sold by Panel Page Art with the asking price of $13,000. It's the cover to Supervillain Team Up number 7. Subby's always in the background of these things. I don't get it. And last but not least, this is a Rob Liefeld cover. It's a Deadpool Dirty 30th anniversary cover, sold for $12,000. And just to go over the top sellers for the week, Felix pretty much owned the total figures. He had 89 total sales, $164,000. But Panel Page with 13 sales came in with $144,000. He had a art drop during the week of, I believe there were 30 covers too from Rob Liefeld, and several of them sold. So that kind of added to his total. Albert came in third with 53,000 in sales, and then Anthony came in fourth with almost 45,000 in sales. So let me go over the auction house results. Auction house results were actually pretty good. $305,000 was a strong figure. It's down from $342 from last week, but last week's figures had the animation results from that signature auction from Heritage and select results from the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle sale that they had as well last week. So 305 was the total. Let me pull these up. This first set is from eBay. This is a complete issue to Grimjack number 7, Timothy Truman art. Sold for $6,050. It was a 20-page story. Next up is a John Byrne, Terry Austin Superman number 1 page. And don't see these too often. It's sold on eBay for $3,598. And finally, from eBay is this Mike Mignola sketch, $3,550, part of his charity auctions. Now, these next three are from Heritage. This is a Wally Wood Wits End, page number 6. It sold for $8,400. It's from 1966. Next up is a Bill Sienkiewicz Elektra Assassin number 4 page. It's page number 8 from 1986, sold for $7,200. And finally from Heritage is another Wally Wood piece, Unearthly Spectaculars number 2, page 2. This is from Harvey, and it was 1966, sold for $5,640. Now I didn't include, because I ran out of time, 2 pieces from Comic Connect that I wanted to mention from their auction. That was the Monday before last. That was the first up was the Ross Andrew and John Romita Sr. Spidey 162 cover, which sold for $108,000, and then also the of course the Daredevil 166 cover, which was darn cool. And so with that, I want to just get into the popular artwork that I selected for the week, and I went a little crazy. I picked 17 pieces this week, and I will say that I could have picked a bunch from Mr. Barucci last week because he unloaded probably 10 incredible pieces. I only picked 2. So sorry, Nick. Anybody wants to see the great stuff that Nick posted last week, you should go check out his CAF gallery because it was overwhelming, to say the least. And so and I'll actually start with his pieces too here. So let's just jump right into things. This is piece by Don Newton and Alfredo Alcala. This is from Detective Comics 365. It's the title page, of course. Collection of Nick Barucci. And next up is a cover by Joe Kubert. It's All-Star Squadron number 7. And all Kuberts are going to be represented in this update as well. That's another Rich Buckler piece. This is in the collection of Paul P. It's Action Comics 523 cover from 1981. I thought that creature was pretty darn crazy. And, well, it's his brother, isn't it? And next up, we've seen this piece before. It was in Heritage Auction, and we featured it. This is by Bill Everett. This is from Submariner number 54, page 2, collection of Comic Art B. This is Adam Kubert and Bill Reinhold. And this is Spirits of Vengeance number 5, page 7, collection of Aram El Rafai. And I probably butchered that. I apologize, Aram. And next up, from the collection of Dan Paddock, this is by John Romita Sr. and Frank Giacoya. It's the title splash to Daredevil 14, Kazar and Daredevil displayed prominently on that one. And this is a commission. Artist is Yo Curry, posted by Morgan Social, and this is Murder Falcon. I like the style on this one. So it was getting something that was getting a lot of views. And next up is this awesome, incredible Hulk 314 page. And it's in the collection of Mario Lasada. And it's, of course, by John Byrne and Bob Weisach. This is a Uncanny X-Men Savage Land cover, number 12. This is, of course, Jake Scott Campbell, collection of Joshua Tan. And this piece is from the collection of James S. It's the Andy Kubert piece in this set. Inker is Dan Green. This is from Captain America from the 2000 series, number 28, page 4. This is in the collection of Jeff Singh. It's Sergio TOPPI. It's a Flash Gordon illustration. Sergio TOPPI is a fantastic illustrator. If you're not familiar with him, I would definitely suggest checking out CAF and his artist page there. This piece is from the collection of Mike Berkey. It's piece from John Romita Sr., Don Heck, both penciling, and Mike Esposito doing the inks. This is from Spider-Man number 64, page 8. And Unmistakable, this is Mike Mayhew, of course, collection of Carl C. This is a Return of Wolverine number 1 cover. Collection of Wes Stefan. This is by Ed Hannigan and John Romita. And this is Marvel Team Up number 37 cover. I wouldn't mind doing that. This is Wolverine the X-Men number 1 cover. This is in the collection of Brian S. It's by Mahmud ASRAR. This is probably my favorite piece. It's a Mike KALUTA cover from Dynamite Entertainment's The Shadow number 2, collection of Wallace Harrington. And finally, this is the splash page to Daredevil number 274, collection of David Donovan. And artist, of course, is John Romita Jr., and inker is Al Williamson. So there you have it. Simple as that. Next week, I believe I'm going to be doing the CAF update on Wednesday as well, because of New Year's Eve being on Thursday. So just kind of plan ahead for that. And also next Tuesday, don't forget that we've got Jim Warden on with the Comic Art Live crew. So with that out of the way, I want to bring on my 2 guests for the evening. And I think you're familiar with their collections on CAF. First up is Justin Leiter. And of course, next up is Rich Cirillo. Hey guys, how you doing?
What's up, guys?
How are you, Bill? Hey, Rich.
Hanging in there. Like I said before we get started, I've got a lot of wrapping to do the next 24 hours. So.
Oh, you mean you actually bought presents already?
I did.
You're ahead of the game.
Well, you can't go out and buy anything. So I just did my shopping, honestly, like Black Friday. So I've had the boxes sitting here for 2 weeks at least. But I am very negligent on my Christmas duties. Everybody else has been enjoying wrapping them around the house. You know, I've got 3 kids and my wife, and everything's nice and under the tree, and my stuff is still sitting in the cardboard boxes and or baggies that they came in. So what are you going to do?
You got it.
2 days.
Yeah, exactly. So we always kind of do the origin story thing. And Justin, you know, well, for one thing, Rich and I Rich was one of my guinea pigs a year and a half ago almost, right, Rich? I mean,
yeah, I was one of your test subjects.
Exactly. And it was fun. I mean, but those interviews were tough to do because I recorded them and then had to edit them. And it was a nightmare for me, which is why I stopped doing them that way for almost a year before I stumbled on to doing these things live. And it just, you know, it's much more conducive to for me to produce these things and then not have to deal anything. So I'll definitely link to Rich's earlier interview just because I think everybody would like to get that, because we talked for a long time. It was good. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, we talked for like over 2 hours, and I remember the connection kept cutting out because we were having like a thunderstorm over here.
Yeah.
So you had to like kind of splice them together.
Yes.
But you did a great job with all the editing and putting the pictures in of the art. Really good job.
Yeah, it worked out pretty good. So hey, Ankur says hello to both of you.
Hey,
And
Ankur.
just so you know, guys, if you didn't check in the right-hand panel, you can switch it to comments, and you'll be able to see the comments as they scroll through. I did forget to tell you that before we got started today.
Screen, so
There we go.
yes.
Wow, we actually have people watching.
Yes, we do. Almost
Hey,
40.
Jackson, what's going on?
Let's see comments. Okay, there we go.
There you go. So yeah, we bring stuff up, and you know, there you go. Like you said, Jackson says hey. Dan says hey, and so anyway, so origin story, Justin. Rich kind of teased it to me, so I'm really interested to hear how. I mean, maybe not necessarily even when you got started collecting art, but when you even got started being interested in comics. I mean, it sounds like there was an early story here. So,
well, I mean, like any kid, I read comic books, Spider-Man comics in the early 70s. But the first time that I got into collecting them, the first time that I ever saw any old comics was my dad had a student, and they had a party one night. My dad was a professor at Brooklyn College, theater professor, and he directed some shows, and they had a party for one of the shows, or maybe a Christmas party or something. And he came over with a big cardboard box with all of his comics from the 60s. So he was about 10 years older than I was. And this was 1976, I believe. And he had a lot of old Amazing Spider-Mans, bad condition, torn covers and whatnot, some in better condition, but just basically a pile of comics in a box. And that was my first time that I'd ever seen any 12-cent comic books or anything like that. And somehow along the way, at some point, my mom found out that maybe these comics are worth something. And it wasn't right away. It was probably maybe a couple of years later. I don't remember. It was a long time ago. But she did at some point go to the library looking for the price guide, the Overstreet price guide. She had heard somebody mention an Overstreet price guide. And in any of the libraries in Queens where I grew up, they were all out. They had been taken out and people didn't return them or something. So she said, wait a second, there's got to be something going on here. So she tracked down a comics, an Overstreet guide, and saw that some of these books, were worth some money. Eventually that led into me collecting and buying and, just one of those things. I was still going to the flea market, and probably not until maybe 78 or something like that I was actually buying older books. I was still buying my regular comics off the rack. And eventually it led her to writing a book on collecting comic books. And conveniently, I have it right here. So this is one of the very first books ever written, actually, on collecting comic books. And my mom, Marcia Leiter. And the book was published in 1983 by Little Brown and Company. It was probably started writing it maybe 1979, somewhere around there. Wrote it for a couple of years, and then published. Now the cover is by Michael Golden. Yeah, there you go. So the publishing company at the time asked my mother, who do you suggest that we get for the cover? And she in turn asked me, and immediately I said Michael Golden because I was a big Micronauts fan, as Rich is as well. So they were able to get Michael Golden to do the cover. Now, unfortunately, I wasn't that smart when I was 10 or 13 years old or whatever, to think, hey, let me see if I can get that original artwork. I didn't even think, even though I had already gotten some original artwork before that, including from Michael Golden. But I never thought about getting the original artwork for the cover until years later. And I've asked Golden about it. And I don't know, I've written to people, Little Brown and Company, who've never responded. So it's gone. Who knows where it is? If he might have been returned to him and thrown it away like he did a lot of his artwork. But he doesn't know where it is, and I don't know where it is. If anybody out there knows where it is, let me know. But
Here it is right here. No.
but in terms of so that was the comic books, So I started reading comics, like I said, as an early age, and then collecting a little bit later, and going to creation conventions that my parents would take me to in the late 70s, early 80s. But in terms of comic art, so I still collect comic books. I'm still very active, buying Silver Age and some little bit of Golden Age, starting to get into. I have a lot of comics in the basement. But comic art, my first piece, I'm not sure if it's between a Michael Golden or a Bill Sienkiewicz. And I think it might have been the Bill Sienkiewicz. I got a Moon Knight from him at a creation convention, a Thanksgiving show, 1979. And he was still working, doing the backup for Rampaging Hulk magazine. So it wasn't yet a Moon Knight comic. But I knew who he was. I saw him at a table. And I asked him for a Moon Knight in a specific pose. And he asked me to do the pose for him, and he kind of drew from me. I had him like with his finger. You probably have it there somewhere. His finger pointing at you. There you go. And Joe Rubenstein was Mr. Joe Rubenstein. There's a connection between Golden and Bill Sienkiewicz. Joe Rubenstein was over at a different area at the convention, and he said, "You should bring it over to Joe and he'll ink it." So I brought it over to Joe. I don't remember how much it was. It was probably like $10 or something to sketch, and maybe $10 for the inks or something like that. Now you see that area. I'm pointing. Of course, you can't see that outside of the cape where it's kind of got like some shading going on. I just remember I watched him ink it, and he said, "Oh, I made a mistake, and let me fill in this extra area." I remember that. He doesn't have. I don't know what happened to the rest of his right leg. It's like inside the cloak or something. So, I mean, there's all kinds of crazy anatomy stuff going on there. But the hand came out really nice. I love the arm, the hand, the torso is great. But it was a young Bill Sienkiewicz, so still in his Neil Adams mode. So that was probably my first convention sketch, and I think I got a couple other. I also got at the same show, Brett. Somebody or other, Wolverine, the guy who drew God Loves.
Brent Anderson.
Brent Anderson. Yeah, he did a Wolverine for me.
Nice.
One 11x17 comic board, but I sold that on eBay maybe 15 years ago. Very rarely do I sell anything. For some reason, I sold that one. But it's either between that Sienkiewicz is my first piece that I got, or Michael Golden. And the Michael Golden was also at a creation convention that a friend's dad, I think, had taken us to. And I think it was supposed to be not Michael Golden at the table, but Dave Cockrum. And I was walking by the table expecting to see Dave Cockrum. And then I saw, I guess he had a nameplate on the table, and I realized it was Michael Golden. I was much more excited that Michael Golden was at the table. And that was right around maybe issue 5 or 4 of Micronauts at that time. And I don't remember what time it was in the day, but probably maybe 12 or 1 o'clock. And I asked him if he was doing any sketches. I saw him drawing, if he had any time. So I don't have any time today, but I can give you my home address and you can send away for one. And I was like, sure, and it was $10 for a figure. Any characters in the background were free. He gave me his address. He was living in Florida at the time. And I don't know, a few days later, I sent away, had my mom write a check, I guess, for $10. And guess I don't know how long it was back then, but probably a couple of weeks, a month, I don't know. And I got a package from him. And I was going to order more. And I had his address, and I threw the package that it came away in, but I had his address just on a little piece of paper, and I lost it, and I was never able to. But I made up for that when he came back onto the scene in 2006, and I've gotten quite a lot of pieces since
now,
then.
was that one of the images that you sent me as well?
I did. It's the one of a Croyer floating.
Yeah. All right. Yep. I actually put it up there with the Doom piece, but that's an awesome sketch from Golden. That's crazy.
The Doom actually was right when he came back onto the scene. So that was one of the very first ones that I had gotten when I started getting commissions from him again in 2006. So he came to a Big Apple Con in New York City in I think October or November of 2006. And he was charging $100 for a pencil sketch full figure. And I gave $100 to Renee, his agent, and she said, it'll be a couple of weeks, famous last words, and you'll get it in the mail, blah blah blah. And of course, weeks and a couple of months go by, and there was still no drawing. But she was kind of keeping people updated through a mailing list at that time about what was going on. And he was at New York Comic Con in February 2007, and I still haven't gotten the Baron Karza, which was the one that I had commissioned him for the $100. But I said, you know what? He's good for it. He's Michael Golden. He's not running away anywhere. And I had given him a copy of the book that he did the cover for my mom. I didn't even have a copy of himself. So I commissioned him again on good faith with the Dr. Doom, another $100 for supposed to be a penciled full figure. And then it took about 2 years. So at another Big Apple Con in October, November of 2008, he had for me the Dr. Doom, the Baron Karza, another drawing that somewhere along the line I had commissioned him in between as well. But he had everything for me. And because it took so long, you can see he inked it and he added characters in the background. Also to the Baron Karza, he as well added some time travelers behind Baron Karza. So, and then from there, I've seen him at many conventions and commissioned him dozens of times.
Well, patience is a virtue.
It's a virtue. It's a virtue.
but I mean, clearly, those are really good, though.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's right here on the wall. Both the Baron Karza and the Dr. Doom, they're framed on the wall. I don't think I could really. I don't know if I could. I could sort of. They're out of camera range, and I don't want to unplug my thing over here. But yeah, I was very excited when he delivered those. So he came through, and I'm waiting on another one right now. Whatever, however long it takes.
Right.
You got 10 more lined up, right?
No, just one. Just one. Just one. I'm waiting on a Michael Kaluta piece for quite a while. About 7 years on that one.
Is that all?
I've seen it. It's finished like a year ago.
He just doesn't want to mail it to you.
I don't know. Who knows?
Yep.
Make them wait.
Yeah, But he said, actually, the last time he said, I'm adding more detail to it. I mean, the thing was, it was an Elric piece. I don't know if there was a centimeter that wasn't inked previously. I mean, it was super detailed. So I don't know, maybe he was adding a background to it, or, I mean, hey, do whatever you want. You want to add more to it? Please be my guest.
One more line.
One more little.
Kaluta is a perfectionist. So that's for sure.
One of my favorites, for sure. So.
Well, why don't we, since we've been looking at some of the artwork here that you have, why don't I show off the rest of the pieces that you gave me and we talk about them, and then we can do the same thing with Rich.
Sure.
All right. And I saw earlier when we first got it started, Ankur did say that Art Adams is overrated. Convince me otherwise. So
that's true.
He's busting your chops.
He should give me his Groot Mary Jane piece. He doesn't like it.
There you go. There you go. So we'll start off with the Art Adams that you sent me.
Yes, there you go. So yeah, that's you can ask a question about it if you like. Or...
Well, I mean, the thing that I liked, you had sent me a bunch of images, and I liked this one that was a composite. So I thought, he doesn't own that many Art Adams pieces, does he? And then I went and checked out your gallery, and I was, well, shit, he does. All right.
Yeah, I mean, that's not all of them. With the better ones, maybe. I mean, there's a few that are out of camera range. some little other sketches and whatnot. But yeah, I mean, there are some guys that are on Comic Art Fans that have just insane. Eric has just have insane Arthur Adams collection. I mean, they have finished. I mean, there's a couple of covers in there, but you know, I mean, they have like mass, you know, pieces that are probably as much of all my pieces, you know, combined in one or two pieces. So, but I like the pieces I have. I'm waiting on an Art Adams too. It's not paid for, but not yet. But who knows when he'll get to it.
Well, you've seen the pieces that he's done in the last 4 or 5 years, and they're spectacular. So just being on the list is you know, should make you pretty happy.
Oh yeah, I mean, he's told me, he's like, yeah, it's right above my. It's a small one. It was a Hulk that he had a blue line pencil of at a show, and want to shout out to my buddy Tony Matias, who gave me the opportunity to go before him and pick something out from the portfolio. And Tony is the moderator, the guy who runs the Arthur Adams Facebook fan page.
Tony.
Yeah, Rich knows Tony. And so I picked out a blue line Hulk that he had, and he said, "Yeah, I'll link it. You know, I don't know when, you know, but you know, put your name on it." And we agreed to a price. And it's been, I guess, about 4 years now. Maybe 2 years ago, he said, "Oh yeah, it's above my drawing board. I erased the arm. I didn't like the arm. I'm redoing. You know, who knows? But you know, one day." So.
Right. Hey, at least it's still on his mind, and you know you're going to get it eventually.
Yeah. So. But yeah, Arthur Adams is definitely one of my favorites.
Yeah, I don't blame you. And this is a beautiful, you know, Wrightson piece as well.
That's on my wall. That's all the way in the corner, so you're not going to see that. But I have that framed. That was one of my early pickups. It's like funny when you think about it. You're like, wow, that was pretty good that I even thought about getting a piece of original artwork back then. You know, because it wasn't like a regular thing that I was doing. But I was at a show in 1993. I think it was 93 at the Javits Center. It might have been maybe a little earlier. I'm not sure. Back then, I was doing a comic. I did covers and inks on a Caliber Press comic called Plasma Baby that my friend Mitch Waxman was the creator of. And we had a table. We did shows back then. And I just was walking around. And I think I had $100 in my pocket. Like, that was it. Well, you know, literally nothing after that. Not any money to buy a soda or anything. And as I walked by, this piece was up on some dealer's table, and I asked him how much it was. He says $100. I'm like, I'll take it, and that was it. So it's my only Bernie Wrightson piece, and yeah, it was a nice one. It's 11 by 14, I think, size wise. So it's a nice one. Yeah. No,
that is a nice one. You don't see, you know, you're used to seeing the, you know, the zombies and whatnot from him, but you don't see images like that too often. That's great.
There's a couple I've seen. There's like one other werewolf that I've seen, and it's not as good. I like that better.
Yeah, I would hold on to that one.
Yeah, it's not going anywhere.
Good. And this is a really nice Sienkiewicz piece.
Yeah, that was at a Big Apple Con 2006, and he was with his guys, who were the two brothers that run, you know, they used to help him at least at the shows, the publishers.
Oh, I know who you're talking about.
Yeah. They're Frazetta guys, the Vanguard publishing guys, I think, right?
Yes.
And he's like, you know, give me $20 and I'll make sure Bill does your piece. I'm like, okay. I gave him an extra $20 on top of it. I think it was $200 for that. 11 by 17. And yeah, I mean, great piece. You know, I have a couple other Sienkiewicz. I have another Batman piece that he did, a penciled one. I have a monster that he drew for me also earlier in 2006 at New York Comic Con 2006. That not as good. I kept it just, I mean, I'm not going to get rid of it. It's just, there's video actually of him drawing it on my YouTube channel. Bill Sienkiewicz Creates. And you see him draw it from Spurlock. Yes, David Spurlock. Thank you, Encore.
No names, Encore.
No, I mean, hey, you got me my piece. I have no problem with that. And
right.
I know
well, it was insurance. You had it,
Yeah.
it got it done. I mean, I've gotten on Bill's list a few times before and not got anything at the end of the show. And I didn't pay up front, but that if you can do it and guarantee that you're going to get something, I'd pay an extra $20 just to be safe.
I mean, especially when you're talking $200. I mean, that piece, I don't know what it would go for now, but a lot more than $200. So
definitely
not going anywhere. That's the one. Dave DeVries.
Yeah.
That I got. Do you remember the old comic art gallery, the 4-color images gallery?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So I actually had a couple of pieces of my own. Back a Plasma Baby cover was actually up. It was in the New York Times. It sold. But this was I met Dave DeVries at a show in 1995, New York City show, small show that Boris Vallejo was there, Julie Bell, and the brothers Hildebrandt were there, sitting next to Dave DeVries. And I didn't know Dave DeVries at that time, but it was right around the time that he was doing his Marvel Masterworks card set. And he had lots of preliminaries for a lot of the cards. And I just loved the artwork that I saw on his table. And he had this piece, he had this painting with him, but he wasn't able to sell it directly because at the time he was being repped through the 4-color images. So he said, just get in touch with 4-color images. And I bought it through them. It was $150. It's small, but, very detailed. But he did sell me a big pack of the preliminaries, maybe 30 pages of preliminaries, or all kinds of sketches with notes on them, fax numbers from to the his editor and whatnot, and different versions of the characters. Some that were on Bristol larger, a lot of them that were on regular like copy paper. But I think it was $35 for everything.
Wow, I've always liked Dave's work.
Yeah, Dave's a great guy. I've become friends with him, and I've taken his class at FIT. And yeah, he's a great guy, and he's a school teacher now, art teacher.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, and he's still doing work. Just did an amazing X-Men poster, digital. Yeah, he still does work. Takes commissions usually during the summer when he has more time. But yeah, definitely one of my favorite artists for sure. Dave Johnson.
Yep.
Another favorite. Yeah, both of these were set up at New York Comic Cons and then mailed to me through Essential Sequential, Jason Schachter.
Yep.
Number of months later. The one on the left, the Astro Skull, it's not any known character, nothing about it. I just asked for, I like astronaut skulls in astronaut outfits, and it's something that I draw myself a lot. I just, for some reason, I like that, look. And he had a piece that he had posted on his Instagram a couple of years ago that was like a skull dude that had a girl profile in the corner, and it had a lot of his really nice inking technique to it. So I just kind of asked for that style of illustration, but with a sci-fi theme as opposed to the fantasy theme that the other piece had, which I also wound up buying. That he still had it. And yeah, he did this one live on his Drink and Draw video cast, and he texted me like literally 5 minutes before he was going on, and he said, "What'd you want again?" I'm like, and I'm like scrambling, because I wanted to show him that piece that I wanted him to base it on. And I'm like, I didn't think when he texted me that he was going on in 5 minutes. And he's like, yeah, I'm going on live in a minute. Let me know. And I'm like, wow. So I found it. And he must have spent about 6 hours on this piece. I mean, he was erasing and redrawing, and he's put a lot of time into it. So I really love that one. And the one on the right, of course, is Travis Sharris's Space Girl, one of the characters that I collect by different artists. And that I set up with him New York Comic Con 2018 and mailed it to me, I don't know, the next spring, something like that. So beautiful piece. You know, I just love his design sense, the inking that's going on. You know, just a beautiful piece.
Yeah, they both are. Yeah, I'll have to send you a link after we're done here. There's a guy, a sculptor. His name is Doug Stanat, and he his sculptures are really small, but he does one of his themes is like undead spacemen. So
oh, really?
Oh yeah, and it's the one. I love everything he does, but one of these days I'm gonna get an undead spaceman because they're my favorite. I mean, and they're just, you know, they're really small, like 4 inches tall, but really highly detailed and totally cool. And he always does like a firing of like 30 at a time of different things, but there's always one spaceman in there, and typically the ones that I want are sold immediately. So you kind of have to follow him on Instagram and Facebook to kind of catch it right when he's firing them. So, but yeah.
Yeah.
I will. And so there's one more piece to look at.
Okay. Oh, another Space Girl.
Another Space Girl.
Yeah, Glenn Fabry. I mean, like I'm sure Rich will have, like every piece that you have has some kind of story behind it.
Absolutely.
And this is another one that took about 2 years. This was at another Big Apple show in 2018, March, or I think it was March of 2018. Glenn Fabry's a great guy, so I don't want to say anything. But he did a small sketch for me at the show of a Jack Kirby Space Beast, which is another character that I collect versions of. Space Beast being a character in Tales to Astonish number 29 from the 60s, you know, pre-hero Marvel Kirby monster books. So he did a little drawing of a Space Beast for me. Looks like it probably took him a minute, if that. But I also was going to get a full figure character, and I asked for a Space Girl, and I think it was $150. And it was just supposed to be black and white. And he got a little bit done. I didn't see anything. Actually, when I came back to his table, he wasn't there. He checked out for the day, let's say. He was back at his hotel room. And that was it. And Buzz Aldrin was kind of helping him out at the show. So I was able to contact and stay in contact with Buzz to kind of keep me updated with what was going on. And he had actually started the drawing. And it was different from this one. It was a completely different drawing of Space Girl, not as accurate with her helmet. It was just, you know, a very beginning rough version. And it was just a lot of back and forth trying to figure out initially with Buzz what was going on. And then I finally got on Facebook and sent a message to Glenn. And then I guess, you know, over a couple of years, every few months, I'd send a message to Glenn, hey, just checking in, what's going on with that Space Girl? Oh, yeah, it's sitting in the corner. Oh, there it is. And, you know, I'm just trying to make her look as beautiful as possible. And now it's going to be colored and, you know, blah, blah, you know, okay, whatever. And eventually it got to me. So I've had it, I guess, since around the spring. And it's beautiful. It's an interesting pose, interesting sense of using the space. As you see, it's I've contemplated, should I make it a jam piece and have other, but there's really no other, you know, there's like the villain in Space Girl, and I'm just going to leave it as it is. I mean, it's perfect, I think, as it is. I love the negative space now that I look at it more. So
no, I agree.
It's a beautiful piece. I mean, look at the work on the face. I mean, it's gorgeous. So and it's you know, it's not just like pencil. It's got all kinds of stuff. Colored pencil, is ink. There's a little bit of white paint in there. So he put some time into it. And there it is.
Well, it was worth the 2 years.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's the thing. You know, some people, like, the whole patience is a virtue. I mean, you know, I can understand if you're worried that you're never going to see your piece, or you're never going to get your money back, and you know you put a lot of money into something. But you know, most of the time these guys are pretty much on. I mean, there are certain ones I'm sure that never come through, but usually they, you know, they're working, they're publishing stuff on a regular basis. They're out there, so you know, you just kind of got to be cool with it, and eventually they'll come through. So I don't mind waiting, especially if you get a nicer piece in the end.
Exactly. So, Rich.
So that's all the time we got for tonight.
Go.
What's up, Bill?
Well, you know, before we look at any artwork and whatnot, I was hoping you'd tell me, you know, about all the fun you're having hanging out with Neil Adams, doing those auctions and stuff with him. I mean, I know you've helped him at the shows, you know, many times in the past at New York and whatnot. Mm-hmm. But since Neil's been doing all these live stream auctions and sales, clearly, he's moving a lot of product. I mean, probably almost more product or as much product as when he's sitting behind a table at the show. So what's that been like?
Well, to start off with, it's been a godsend with the internet, with all the COVID going on. I mean, your interviews have been a godsend. I mean, I keep thinking if COVID had hit years ago, before there was, you know, Zoom and Facebook and all that, we'd be going out of our minds, you know. At least this way we can still stay in contact with our friends and our family, even if we can't see them in person. So as far as Neil doing the Facebook auctions, he had started them last year. I think originally he wanted to do them because he had just opened up a comic book store out in California, and he wanted to move some product through that. And also, too, he was doing a lot of shows. You know, he was doing a show almost every weekend, and after a while, it wears you down. And also, too, some of the shows are great. You got New York Comic Con, San Diego, all the big shows, and those are great for artists and for dealers and everything. But then you have a lot of smaller shows, and, you know, it's an expense, you know, between airfare, hotel, food, all of that. And a lot of artists are lucky if they break even or, you know, do well at those shows. So it's kind of good now with everyone being shut in with COVID that they were able to experiment with the internet as a viable way to sell their product. And, you know, he started off doing the auctions a couple of nights a week. Some weeks he'll do it every night. And what's good about it is it's not just the people that you would meet at the shows. Now you have an audience that are in other countries, other states, people that have never seen him before. They get an opportunity every night to not just see him sell his product, but he does drawing demonstrations on there, all kinds of stuff. So I applaud all of you guys, especially you, Bill, you know, doing these interviews. You know, it's just opened up a whole new world for collectors. The comic live events that you've been doing have been great, giving people opportunities to buy product, sell product. Like I said, the internet's been a boom. It's one of the bright spots to come out of this year. And like I said, with Neil doing the auctions, he's been helping other artists too, you know, get set up so that they can sell their art and pay their bills. You know, that's the reality of this year. People got to make a living. You know, a lot of artists, if they don't do shows, they don't got income coming in unless they're doing like a regular book or they have clients that they're drawing for. So, like I said, it's been a blessing in disguise. But other than that, was there any other questions regarding it?
No, just I was just more curious, you know, what your role is. I mean, you must be like moving things around for him behind the scenes. And
yeah, what happened was I was working for a sports clothing company in the city, and my office was only a couple of blocks from where his studio is. So I used to pop in there from time to time, and when he started doing the auctions, I was familiar with the format because I had done them like 2 or 3 years ago on the toy sites on Facebook. So when he started getting into it, I was kind of discussing with him like different things he could try, and other people were also giving their advice to him. And it was like, okay, this works well for toys. How can we apply it for artwork and for sketches and commissions? And it was kind of like a work in progress. So I would pop in there from time to time. And then what happened was when COVID hit, and especially in Manhattan where I work, a lot of companies were closing down. They were closing the offices. They were laying off people, furloughing people. I worked in a company of 300 people, and I would say about, I don't know, 150, 200 people got laid off, and I was one of them. So suddenly I had a lot of free time, and I started going up there more and more, trying not to make a pain out of myself, being up there all the time. And I would help them where they wanted me to, as far as either doing camera work for them or just staying on the side and helping them, because when they go through the archives, a lot of the advertising art he did, Neil did a lot of work for toy companies, packaging and stuff like that. So I would help him identify what the pieces were. Comic books too, I would try to help him with whatever knowledge I had. So I just tried to be helpful, and I was going there more and more. And then after a while, we were discussing about he wanted to put some sketchbooks together to sell. So I was going to do some computer work for him. And then what happened in October was I was on unemployment, and they cut me off after a year. So I basically went up to Neil and I said, I hate to ask, but I need a job, So if you have any work, I'll do whatever you need. I'll sweep the floor. I'll clean the bathrooms. I just need to pay my bills. And he was very gracious, and he brought me on full time. And he said, basically, you're going to be an assistant to me and my daughter, and whatever we need, and it changes every day, whether it's computer work or prepping for the auctions, getting artwork together. It's great. I'm loving it. I told his daughter, Chris, this is like my dream job, just being around the comic industry in some shape or form. And also too, it's like an apprenticeship, being under a master artist where every day is a learning experience. He's taught me so much in a short period of time, just how to draw, how to ink. And the great thing with Neil is like, he looks at things differently than you would think when it comes to drawing. A lot of people during the live auctions say to him, oh, you should open a school. You should teach people how to draw. And he goes, no, I don't teach people how to draw. What I do is I teach people how to think, and he has a different way of approaching things. Like he will show you how to hold a brush or a pen differently, the way he does it. And it opens up a whole new world. It's like a light bulb going off. Like, I wish I could have done this 20, 30 years ago, but I'll take it when it comes, and I just look at it as, in the midst of everything going down this year, this was a really bright spot that I'm very grateful for, very appreciative of. And it's like they say, when one door closes, another one opens. So I'm happy, to help them out in any capacity that they need me. And, it's just a lot of fun.
Well, you're very fortunate, that's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely realize that this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, and I try to show them every day that I'm gonna bust my hump to work as hard as possible. That's the first thing I noticed with Neil, being around the studio, day after day. He's an extremely hard worker. What he's accomplished is not by chance. In addition to the God-given talent that he has, he works harder than anyone I've ever met. The man just doesn't sleep. He's a machine as far as cranking out piece after piece. And, I try to step up my game to work as hard as I possibly can, to let him know that it's appreciated. And, I'm going to do my best to step up.
Very cool. And not to go off topic, but did you ever get a chance to ask Neil directly about that Tarzan show?
When you asked me initially, Neil wasn't in the office that week. He wasn't feeling great. And then when he does come in the office, usually it's like boom, boom, boom. We're trying to get the auctions going. So I apologize if I didn't get back to you right away. I asked him about it the other day, and he kind of drew a blank on it. The name didn't sound familiar to him. Basically, he's had so many shows and galleries over the years. His daughter Chris said to me that she believes it was a small show in the city. She remembers one show with the Tarzan paintings, and she said it was like a really tiny room, if that's the one that it was. He didn't recall. He remembered the one from Super Snipe that he had done, but basically, over the years, he's done so many shows, so many exhibits that they all kind of merged together after a while, and the name just didn't ring a bell with him.
Right. Well, I thought he might have remembered it just because, the question was basically he had exhibited all of his Tarzan covers at one point in a gallery in New York around 1977. And Joe Jusko swears it was at the New York Comic Arts Gallery. And Super Snipe had a comic art gallery around the same time, from around 74 to 80.
They seem to believe it was Super Snipe, but years kind of blur the memory a little bit. But from what they told me, the Tarzan paintings were at a few galleries in New York. It wasn't just one. So there was a bunch of little shows that they had done in like the late 70s exhibiting his art.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I mean, that's fine. I was just curious. The only reference I could find was, I think in 76, there were Tarzan prints made, and they had Super Snipe's gallery address on the bottom of it. So
okay.
my feeling is that that was where the show was, and they probably were selling extra prints because it wasn't a print of the cover, but it was a Tarzan image that was on the print. And I found that on Heritage. So it's more than likely that. I just wanted to kind of see if I could get Joe to remember right and this other guy to remember right, because the guy who ran the gallery didn't think that Neil stuff, that the Tarzan stuff was there, but Joe was adamant it's the only place I've ever seen him, and so I cut that out of the interview because I couldn't prove it. So let's see.
That's the thing when you ask longtime artists, like specific questions from like 30, 40 years ago, like it may be vivid in like a fan's mind, but because artists, they've done so many projects, so many shows, they've met so many people, it's very hard to remember everything, so some things stand out and some things kind of go by the wayside.
Oh, I don't blame him. I don't blame him at all. But hey, the first piece I want to show is actually wasn't on your list.
Okay.
I went through your gallery, but it relates to something you were just talking about with regards to the work that you've helped Neil sell and whatnot. And it's something that you picked up yourself, a piece of toy marketing.
Yeah, the Corgi piece on that. So when Neil does the auctions every week, his daughter goes through the archives, and most of what they've been selling has been advertising art. Some of that falls into the toy packaging category. So this was a piece that just popped up one night, and anybody that was there for the auction was very surprised, me included. I was home that night when they showed it. I hadn't seen it before, and you're kind of scrambling, while the auction's going on, trying to figure out what is it from. And a couple of the regulars on the auction, they were thinking it was from like Power Records that he had done art for in the 70s, because there were like similar poses of like Superman flying, and there were a few with kids on his back. And then later on, I wound up winning the auction. Me and another guy went at it a little bit bidding. And what wound up happening was I posted it onto Facebook on Neil's appreciation page. And I just asked people, have you ever seen this image? And they came through and said it was from the Corgi toy packaging.
Wow. Now, what's the size of that?
That measures about 15 by 10 inches. So originally Neil drew it on a regular piece of paper, I get like typewriter paper, you know, thin paper. And then years ago, for the presentation, he mounted it onto a thicker board. So you'll see a cut line around the character. And then he drew action flying lines onto the actual board.
Yeah, it's
But
really nice.
This was a rarity that popped up. They don't find a whole lot of this. Me being a toy collector like Justin, as well as an art collector, I always ask them about toy packaging, you know, a couple of companies in particular that I'm interested in. And unfortunately, most of it never got returned to them. They might have a few prelims from packaging, but a lot of stuff was kept by the companies, never returned. So this was a rarity that they found.
Well, and you didn't have an inside track to buying it. You had a bid on it, just like everybody.
No. In fact, I was kind of. It's a double-edged sword. I was glad to get it, you know, as a collector, but as a friend of theirs trying to help them with the auctions, I was like, why didn't you guys hold off on this? Why didn't you promote it or research it? You know, like I said, it's a double-edged sword. Yeah, I'd like to get a piece at a good price, but at the same time, I want them to get, you know, what it's worth. You know, a lot of times they're a little too anxious to list it like the same day, and sometimes we gotta, you know, say to Neil, you know, why don't we hold off on this and, you know, kind of put it online, show people that are interested, because as soon as I bought that piece, I started getting private messages left and right. People wanted to like buy it from me, and I didn't even know exactly what it was at first. In fact, I was asking a couple of dealers, do you know what this is? And they were like, oh, it's unpublished, you know, and I'm like, nah, you know what it is. Don't play me.
No, I know. I know. There's a lot of koi collectors out there that know more than they're willing to you know, give you information.
Yeah, it's kind of funny when I first came into the hobby back in the late 90s, early 2000s. I was pretty naive as far as prices and worth and all that stuff, and I let a lot of pieces go way cheaper than I should have. And it's funny, you know, you'll sell a piece for, back in the day, I don't know, $200, $300. Next thing you know, it's up for sale for 3 times, 10 times that amount, and you just want to kick yourself. And it's like, okay, I'm going to learn on the fly here. And what I've tried to do over the years, as far as not just learning for myself, but new people that come into the hobby, try to help them out a little bit, you know, if they ask advice as far as what things are worth or what they should do with a piece. Because I've seen a lot of pieces go, you know, way too cheap, and people kind of kick themselves later on. And I think the playing ground should be a little more even for everybody.
Yeah, I mean, that's you know, Andrew says, yeah, Koi says, I'm being kind. It's you know, it is what it is. Unfortunately, it's a hobby where people have to, you know, knowledge is power, and usually the guys that have it aren't willing to share it.
Right.
Not in all cases, though. I mean, you know, I've met a lot of people that are fairly open with the information, but you know, but it's an advantage that some collectors use against other collectors, and it's unfortunate because it probably does turn off a lot of new collectors. Right, at the end of the day, if you get screwed once or twice, you know, out of a piece that you realize was probably worth 3 times as much as what you got for it, it leaves a bad taste in your mouth. You know, I'm sure many a collector has kind of bowed out of the hobby early on when something like that would happen.
Yeah, I mean, it's unfortunate in some regards. I think fellow collectors should be a little more kinder to each other, and not everything predicated on, you know, the price. Because, I mean, when a lot of us got into this hobby, when I started over 20 years ago, things weren't as expensive and it was enjoyable. You know, as far as you get a really good piece at a decent price, there were bargains to be found. And nowadays it's a lot harder to find a really good piece. I mean, that Superman's an example of something that kind of fell into my lap. Like I said in a comment on one of your other broadcasts, bargains are out there, but you really got to keep your eyes open nowadays. Whereas years ago it was more prevalent. Yeah, it's hard. There's a lot of pieces I would love to own nowadays, and it's just passed me by. It's funny because we all get labeled in the hobby as you're this collector or you're that collector. People used to know me as you're the golden collector. Now that I'm working for Neil, it's like, oh, you're the Neil Adams collector. And the truth of the matter is there's a lot of artists I would love to collect, but it's just not affordable to me. I would love to collect vintage John Byrne, George Perez, Frank Miller. But if I didn't start that 10, 20 years ago, it's not going to happen now. I'm talking about vintage pieces, the comic books that I grew up with in the 70s. The big names when I was a kid were Perez, Byrne, Golden, Miller, Simonson. Neil was actually a little before my time. A lot of his classic books came out in the early 70s, and my prime collecting comic books started in like the mid 70s. So I missed a lot of that stuff, and I didn't collect it until it was reprinted years later. But all those guys that I grew up reading and loving their art, I would love to have those collections, but I didn't have the foresight when I got into the hobby to seek all of that out and hold on to it. Unfortunately, I've had to let a lot of pieces go over the years. When you go through divorce, that's going to happen. Sometimes you got bills you got to pay. And, people have always said to me, why did you let this piece go? Why'd you let that go? You must be crazy. No, I just had bills to pay. The bottom line, I didn't want to let it go. And after a while, people think, oh, he's just a flipper, he picked up this piece and then he flipped it for a profit. Well, if I didn't have, a car payment due or this, that, or the other thing, I would have held on to it. It's just the nature of the beast. Some of us have great paying jobs, and unfortunately, me working in the art field all these years, it's sporadic. Sometimes you land at a great company, and sometimes you're out of work. So that's the reality of the situation. But I'm thankful for whatever I got in my collection. I'm grateful for the pieces that I've held on to, and at some point you got to be happy with what you got, not just this unending cycle of I want this, I want more, I want 200 Michael Golden pieces, or
well, you do want 200, right?
Yeah,
that's Justin's collection.
Yeah, you got a few pieces as well.
But like I said, the joy of this hobby is enjoying what you have, and if something else comes along, great, jump on it.
Oh yeah, you can't you can't lament the things you got rid of in the past.
No.
I mean, I've let go of way too many things. In the early days, I just wasn't really sure of myself as a collector and of the things that I had, and I traded away pieces that I should have held on to, but I felt like, oh, that person probably wants it more than I do. I remember I actually had like the only Barry Windsor Smith piece I've ever had was a pencil piece from whatever I can't even think of which X-Men story that was, the Life Death, right? The first one. And it wasn't even inked, but it was the picture of Storm, knocking that guy in the head and knocking him over, and the rain's coming down, and it was just beautiful. But I was like, what am I gonna? It's a prelim. I didn't think I wanted it. I remember trading it away for where I valued it at about $150. But I didn't know any better, and I think I had gotten it. Someone who traded it to me didn't know what it was worth, and so I didn't really have a concept of what would something like that be worth. And but that's probably one of the few things that I really regret letting go that I should have held on to, but looking back on it, I don't know if the person, they probably knew more than I did about it. And, I've never seen the piece again. It was something I traded away at a San Diego early on in like 2004 or something. I'd only had the piece for about a year. But I look back on it now, and that'd be like the one thing I'd love to have, because I'm an X-Men fan, as well too. And I could never own a Barry Windsor Smith anything, right? And that would have been a cool piece to still hold on to. So like Justin, when I look at the stuff that you have, and I'm thinking, man, you still got the Moon Knight that I don't have really any of those early pieces because I let them all go.
Hardly sold anything. I mean, in my entire time that I've had, maybe I've sold 5 pieces. I mean, that Brent Anderson Wolverine, a couple of Ken Landgraf pieces that I got in the 70s, some very uneventful Superman or Action Comics page from the 70s that I got at an auction at a creation show for like $3. I mean, now it's probably a few $100s. When I sold it on eBay 15 years ago, I got like maybe $100 for it or something. But yeah, just only if I really don't like it, like a couple of commissions that I've gotten that I just really didn't like, I've sold those. But anything that I like, it's not going anywhere. So, and even a few things that I have that I'm not crazy about, there's like some kind of weird sentimental value to it. So it's tough for me to sell anything. I mean, I've got doubles and triples of comics that I could easily sell. And for some reason, I can't sell them. I've had it for 40 years. Why should I sell it for $15?
Mm-hmm.
Unless
I think sometimes the pieces that mean the most to you are not necessarily the ones that cost the most, but they, like Justin said, they have some sentimental value to you. Like any of the early convention sketches I got, those meant a lot. What did I pay for them at the time? $10, $20. I had an early Adam Hughes piece, a Bill Willingham piece. And again, if I put them on eBay or Heritage, they probably wouldn't get all that much. But to me, it's the memory of going there as a young kid, my first exposure to a convention, to art. And to me, that's priceless. And it's funny. I had 4 convention sketches that I had gotten in the 80s that in 1998, I had sold all of them. That was my first marriage. We had just bought a house and we were trying to pay down the mortgage, and I sold them on eBay pretty cheap. And since then, I've been trying to find them again. And out of the 4, I've found 3 of them since then. And one I just found this past year. It was a Bob Layton piece that he drew of the Red Wolf from the future, from his Hercules miniseries. And again, to anybody else, it may mean nothing, but to me, it was like, okay, I got this when I was 20 years old. A friend of mine had to pick it up at a convention. The friend of mine that picked it up, he's dead now. He died early. So it has those memories for me of how it was acquired. And I was very happy to get it back. And it was funny, when I bought the piece off of eBay recently, it turned out to be a guy's wife that was selling it on there. And I just asked her for a little bit of background to see if I had sold it to her husband or what the story was. And she said, no, actually, my husband just passed away a couple of months ago, and I didn't know much about these pieces. But she had put them up for sale. And then when I told her I was the original owner, she's like, oh, it found the place it was supposed to be. So that was kind of nice.
So you only need to find one more?
Yeah, it was a Mike Zack Wolverine piece that I had gotten in 1989 at a Big Apple Con. I would say out of the 4 pieces that I sold, the other 3 I liked a lot better. That one was okay. If I was smarter at the time, I probably would have asked him for a Captain America or a Punisher. But for whatever reason, I asked him for Wolverine that day. And it kind of looks similar to his Secret Wars stuff that came out a few years prior to that. But that one I haven't come across yet.
Well, if you keep searching, I mean, I'm sure you got it set up as a favorite search on eBay.
I think I've got so many things set up that I'm looking for. It's you never know what's going to pop up. I mean, there's a couple of childhood books I've been trying to put together over the years, and anyone that's done that knows that's a difficult task. I think some of the dealers were talking about that in a couple of your lives, that early on you may find like half the book, and that seems to come pretty easy, and then the second half of the book that you're looking for is like either next to impossible or the prices have skyrocketed. One particular book I've been putting together, when I started buying pages from it 20 years ago, they were $300 a piece, and the most recent one I picked up at Heritage was $3,000. So prices go up. I know there's a few childhood books that I had, because I started buying comics when I was like 4 or 5 years old, and one of them was Captain Marvel 31 by Jim Starlin. And to try to get a page from that book now, I mean, what are you starting at? 10 grand a page?
Yeah,
so
easy.
I've kind of written that one off.
Yeah, I don't blame you. But you know, the other problem, of course, is that once somebody knows you're trying to complete a book, then the prices are going to go up. Just to,
yeah, well, that's why I'm not mentioning the book.
Yeah, no, exactly. Don't say a word. Well, why don't we look at a few other pieces here, Rich? I've got a couple other ones loaded up in here for you.
What you got?
Right.
The Gene Colan.
Yep.
So Gene, I was fortunate to meet back in 2006 at the first New York Comic Con, and I actually hit it off very well with his wife as far as conversation. You know, she was the only way I can describe it is you could tell she was from New York. And I tend to get along with people very well with that type of mentality, and very kind. And they were the type of people that you felt like you had known like your whole life, you know, very, very open, and just there for you if you needed it. They had actually invited me over their house back in 2007. They were living in an apartment on Long Island, and they invited me and my then wife over for dinner one night, and just listening to Gene's stories about Stan Lee and working in comics, it was priceless to me. So this is from Captain America 601. It was the last book that Gene drew for Marvel Comics. He had passed away maybe a year or so after he had drawn this, and as soon as his wife had made these available, I was trying to buy as many as I could afford at the time, and I wound up buying 3 pages from the book. And I've wanted to see different inkers, you know, try their styles on this over the years, and I will not have anyone touch the original pencils. Those won't get touched. I mean, Gene just put so much work into this, even at an advanced age. And years ago, I had Tom Palmer ink a blue line of this for me, which came out incredible. He was one of the best inkers that ever inked Colan, along with Joe Sinnott and Bill Everett that come to mind. And recently, I would say earlier this year, maybe back in April, I had brought my portfolio up to Neil's studio, and I was just showing him different pieces I had in my collection. And for whatever reason, these pages from this book really appealed to him. And it was funny, when he was looking at it, he had his poker face on. He was just flipping through the pages, like, oh, this is nice, that's nice. And that night he did a live auction, and he was just gushing about these pages, how much he loved Gene Colan's art, how much he always wanted to work with him and never really had the opportunity, I think, other than one cover of his that he inked for an independent company. And, I spoke to Neil after that, and I said, would you like to ink blue lines of this? Originally, he wanted to ink the originals. I'm like, no, I really don't want to touch the pencils. I want to leave them. And basically, I brought in the art for him, the 3 pages. He scanned them in, and he just had the best time of his life inking these pages. And after that, because he had such a good time, we tracked down another 14 pages that another friend of his had, and he brought them down to the studio, and Neil scanned them in, and Neil inked those pages. So the ink pages that are Gene's blue lines with Neil's inks, he's been selling those during his auction. So if anyone has any interest, contact Neil. He'll be glad to show you scans of them. But it was just a pleasure to see Neil like so excited about another artist's work. Like I would have never thought in a million years that Colan's art would appeal to him. It's just two totally different styles, and he just had a ball inking them.
Yeah, you don't have that one in your gallery by with Neil inking it, right?
No, I don't own any of the ones that Neil inked.
Okay.
He's been selling those. I just have the original pencil ones. I might have a scan of the one that Tom Palmer inked for me. I'd have to check my gallery if it's up there or not. But if you go onto Neil's Facebook page, he might have a few of them posted on there, and I'm sure they're on his appreciation page also. I think he's got maybe another 7 or 8 pages left. Yeah, there's the Tom Palmer one.
Yeah, that came out really nice.
Yeah, Tom's another guy that I've met at the conventions, and he is like salt of the earth. I mean, one of the nicest guys you ever want to meet. He did a couple of commissions for me, and we went out to dinner, and just a nice, down to earth human being. That's the one thing I love about the hobby, is getting to meet a lot of these artists and creative people at the shows. A lot of people, like a lot of the newer artists, I may not have been familiar with their current work, but once I see their work at the shows, going through their portfolios, and then you get to know them, and a lot of them are really great people that you want to get interested in their art just based on their personality. So the conventions have always been great for that, but not just the artists. Justin's a prime example of meeting people both through CAF and through the conventions. I had been familiar with Justin's CAF gallery for years because we were both Michael Golden collectors. And I was like, who is this guy that has a Micronauts piece from back in the 70s? I didn't meet Golden until 2006. And, I had his gallery is one of my favorites, and always looking through his new pieces. And then Justin may remember, because I'm not sure exactly when we finally met, but I can probably bet it was either on Golden's line or Arthur Adams. It had to be one of the two.
I think it was at Arthur Adams. And
was it? Okay.
2015, maybe?
Okay.
I think so. At New York Comic Con. It was the first year that he did New York Comic Con, Arthur Adams.
And it's great to just connect a face with, a name or a gallery that you're familiar with. And that's one of the great things about CAF that you put together, Bill. It's like I've met so many collectors through your website, through similar collections that we have, either people I've bid against or sold pieces to or bought pieces from. We've actually met all these people through CAF, and then we go to the convention. It's like, oh, you're so-and-so, and it's a great introductory page on the internet to meet a lot of like-minded collectors.
Yep.
Well, that's true. And both of you have been on CAF for quite some time, Rich. You joined in October 2004, and Justin joined in September 2004. So, so you got a month on him, Justin, and
he's always been ahead of the curve. I mean, he always one up me.
Oh, I wouldn't say that. No. Yeah.
But yeah, like I said, it's a great website for meeting other collectors, for expanding your own collection. I've found so many pieces off of your site that people were selling, or people have contacted me out of the blue. Like oh, are you looking for this piece or that piece? I mean, a prime example is that Tiger Man cover that I picked up a few years ago. Steve contacted me out of the blue. I'd been looking for that piece for 20 years. Okay. I had posted it on KEF about 10 years prior. And Frank Thorne had 3 different art reps through the years that I had contacted, and nobody had been able to track that piece down. And Steve just emails me out of the blue one day. He's like, oh, are you still looking for this piece? And I basically said to him, yeah, do you have any leads on it? And he's like, leads? I own it. He's like, I was actually going to bring it to auction, but if you're interested, I'll offer it to you first. And I was like, take my money.
Yeah, no, CAF's been, you know, I've learned a lot about what CAF has meant a lot to people really after starting to do these chats and everything, because I wasn't, you know, I only hear all the bad things that don't work well or whatever. You don't hear all the good stuff, right? You know, when you're helping people find art or.
Oh, there's a lot. There's a lot of good stuff that's come through this website over the years. I mean, I was joking with you at your interview. I think it was with Encore, about how you helped me track down an internet stalker through your website.
Yeah, that's true. I did.
Yeah, there was this idiot that was stalking like me and my wife, and he was creating aliases on different websites, and one of them was CAF, and he was leaving comments on my gallery, but it was only the pieces that I drew that I posted on there. And I'm like, okay, something's fishy. Why is he just commenting on my drawings, you know, about, oh, what a great artist you are. Do you give lessons, blah, 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 right? And then I asked Bill, I was like, can you track down his IP address by chance? And another website that this guy went through, they were able to give me the same IP address, and I gave that to a detective, and they tracked this guy to his house, and it turned out to be someone that my wife had dated before she ever met me, and he was just a piece of work.
We're public servants too.
Yeah. I owe you a debt of gratitude.
You can just buy me a beer the next time we're able to hang out.
I'll get you a Neil Adams head sketch.
That would be good. I don't have anything by Neil. Not now. I used to have a few pieces by him, but yeah, that'd be cool. Well, we got a couple more pieces to look at. And hey, Justin, just so you know, everybody's saying your mic sounds really low. I don't know if it's maybe.
Does it? How about now?
That sounds better.
I don't know if is there a way to? I don't know if I can.
I think you're just too far away from the mic when you lean back.
Yeah, that's
okay. I'll lean in.
There you go.
Yeah.
All right, there we go. All right, let's look at a couple of these other pieces here. Since we talked about Jusko earlier,
the Submariner piece. So Jusko, a few years ago, he had done a corner box piece for Conan from the Savage Sword of Conan covers from the 70s. And as soon as I saw that one, I emailed Joe and I said, are you thinking about doing any other ones? And he said, oh, by the way, funny you mentioned that. I'm going to be doing a bunch of Marvel ones from the comic books that he grew up with in the 60s. So I was like, well, if you do them, I'm interested, you know, just give me a shot. And we worked out a deal, and I wound up buying the first 5 that he did for the series. And soon after that, he spoke to an editor at Marvel, and they wanted to do a variant month of just his painted covers. And the project started, I think he was going to do like 10 of them. And then it turned into, I think, close to 30 that he had done. So I picked up from him Submariner, Spider-Man, Captain America, Vision, and Doctor Strange. So again, very, very fortunate to get those from him and very thankful. Joe's a great guy.
Yeah, no, he really is. And I was talking with him about a week ago, and, you know, it was funny. That's how the Tarzan cover stuff came about. You know, he's like, it's my dream job. You know, 40 years ago, I was checking out his Tarzan paintings, you know, Neil's paintings, you know, at a gallery in New York. And now I'm the one doing these, you know, I'm doing the redos, you know, for the Edgar Rice Burroughs books. And he's like, it's a dream come true. and it's for him. And so it's always cool when artists get to do things that they've always wanted. Because I remember when he was doing those corner box pieces, how happy he was, doing them. I mean, he's it was a real gas for him. He just seemed to be so excited about it, and that's why I've always liked Joe, as an artist and a creator. Just not only because he's a fantastic painter, but you can tell when he gets into what he does, he really enjoys it.
He's a fan for sure. He's got a great art collection himself. I mean, people know he loves John Buscema extremely. But you could tell with the corner box pieces that it was a labor of love for him, because I don't know what it is. When you look at certain pieces of art, you could tell like the artist was just more into certain pieces. I can't put a finger on it. It's just certain pieces just pop, they appeal to you. And I know Joe had a great time doing the corner box pieces, especially the ones from the 60s that he had grown up with. So yeah, just great pieces. And I'm glad that it worked out for him with Marvel, that they wanted to publish them. Because originally he was just doing it as like a fan project, that he wanted to do. So it worked out great.
Yeah. I think he sold us like print sets of those too, or something.
Yeah,
too, right?
Yeah, at conventions he sold like oversized prints of those, which are really nice. I don't know if he still has any. It's hard to tell these days because there's no conventions. What product that artists still have that they're selling. But hopefully, maybe in the new year, the conventions will come back and we'll all laugh about this, right?
We can only hope.
Yeah.
I mean, I still don't think 2021 is going to be too rich with conventions, unfortunately, but certainly by 2022, I mean, I can't see it going beyond that. But I think even with the vaccine, there's still going to be restrictions on occupancies and that sort of thing. I can't see how San Diego could pull it off this year, just because California is in a bad state right now. I mean, as it is, and just the idea that they would ever allow that many people to cram into that city seems unlikely. And the same thing with like the creators. The creators really going to want to travel there to be a part of those shows too. So I don't know.
I think what's going to happen is first you're going to see smaller shows as kind of like a test run to see how it works and make sure there's no big outbreaks after that. And if those go well, they'll expand them, periodically.
Right. It's just going to take some time.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So, I mean, I was set to go to San Diego. I want to go back. I'd missed the 3 years prior to this year after going for, say, 13 straight years. So I was like geared to go back, and then all of a sudden it happened. But, what are you going to do?
It was the first year I was supposed to go. I've never been to San Diego, and I was supposed to work at Neil's booth this year, and then this all went down. So one day I'll get to San Diego. Yeah.
Well, won't be next year, I don't think, but after that, yes. And Ray asked, we knew that Joe was, and yes, at least I knew he was a police officer.
You all know Joe the policeman from the What's Going Down episode of That's My Mama.
Yeah, Joe's. Well, he does mention it from time to time on his Facebook, I think. But yeah, speaking of that though, just so everybody knows, Comic Art Live will be the first weekend in June. That's going to be the next date. I haven't officially listed it, but that's definitely when it's going to happen, and I'm looking forward to it. We're going to
Bill, send me a reminder when it's coming around, because I mentioned the last one to Neil, and he's really interested in getting involved with the next one.
Okay, no, it'd be great. I mean, I feel like I might have. You know what? I talked to his son the first one we did, and literally like the day before. So I don't think that they really got anything going with that one, with the first show. And then I don't know what happened the second show, but I never reached out to him specifically. And I think that that was me being a dummy, because I should have, especially knowing how active things got for him with his online sales, to do something. And I mean, I'd love to have Neil on for a panel or something, and even if we sold a little bit of art as part of it.
Yeah, I think that'd be a great idea. So let me know anything you want to do with him, and we can either forward it to Jason or directly to Neil, and get it done. Because I mentioned to him with your last online show how well a lot of the artists had done selling their product, and his eyes like lit up. He's like, "Why are we not doing this?"
Right.
So
well, you can tell him it's because I'm probably one of the worst marketers that you'll ever meet. I just don't. I just expect people to come, to show up and just everything works. And the thing is, now that I have Colin technically as a full-time employee, almost a full-time employee, I have that opportunity to have somebody who can write the PR, even if I'm the one putting the emails together. I just don't have time to do all that. I mean, that's why there's no real instructions on how to use CAF. After 18 years, there's still no good how-to. How do you get in and use your gallery? I can't tell you how many times I've copied and pasted the same set of instructions because it's not there, and I'm just bad at that. And but I'd love to.
We run into the same exact problem with our weekly auctions. Like, there should be a lot of prep time as far as scanning pieces, posting them online, and there's no time to do it. Everything is just like boom, 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 get it done. So I can totally identify with what you're saying.
Well, we should, let's definitely talk in about a month just to get some ideas to get down.
Absolutely.
And I'd love to have Neil be a main guest of the show and do some special stuff with him.
That'd be great.
Yeah. Let's see. We got a few more pieces here to look at. I picked, let's see, piece by Neil. I really like this. I thought this was pretty cool.
Yeah, this was another piece that just came out of nowhere. I was watching the auction last when this popped up, and I was like, what exactly is this? So Neil did a mini-series for Marvel this year of the Fantastic Four, and this was actually the prelim that he showed to Marvel to kind of sell them on doing a mini-series. So he just threw it together. It's technically like an unpublished cover, like a presentation piece. And I asked Neil about it after I bought it. I said, "What's the story behind this?" Because the miniseries story is completely different. It's got Galactus and a new villain called Antithesis and the Silver Surfer. So I'm like, "What's the story behind this piece?" And he basically told me like 3 or 4 different synopsises. He's like, "Well, it could be this, or it could be that." So I just kind of looked at him like, okay, there's no real story behind this. You just drew like a visual and showed it to Marvel. Because I was wondering what the character on the top was supposed to be. Is that the Thing morphing into something else? Is it a villain possessing his body? What is it? And it just, there wasn't really any developed story behind this piece. It was just something out of his imagination he threw together. And it's a pretty tight piece. When I bought it from him, Thing and Mr. Fantastic were really tight, and the Invisible Girl and Human Torch were relatively loose at the top. So I asked him if he was willing to tighten those up as well for a little bit extra, and he obliged.
Oh, very cool. And I got one more for you. John Byrne.
The Justice Machine. Okay, show of hands. How many in the audience actually remember this magazine?
I do.
You do?
I do. Yeah, I've still got a couple Justice Machine magazines. They weren't on great stock, that's for sure. But that's what caught your eye when you were at the comic shop, was that they were oversized. So
oh yeah, this was magazine size, and back in the early '80s. In Long Island, we had a comic store called Cosmic Comics, and he had this hanging on the wall there. And I mean, how old was I at the time? I was probably like 13. And to see this, I was blown away. And in my opinion, it's probably the best art that ever was done for the Justice Machine. Not to take away anything from Mike Gostovich that created the characters, but Byrne really added his unique abilities to it. So this was on my want list for a while. And again, I put it in calf about 10 years ago, looking for this cover. And then it popped up in one of the dealer's pages. So, you know, thankfully I had a piece that they were interested in, and we were able to work out a deal for it. So this is the one John Byrne cover I've ever owned. And again, like I told you earlier, I would love to have a huge John Byrne collection, but financially it's just not possible for me at this time, because I'm into the vintage art, you know, the stuff that I grew up reading, whether it was X-Men, Fantastic Four, Avengers that he drew. So to get this piece from the early 80s, that's definitely checks a lot of boxes off my list.
Oh no, I mean, it's obviously it's one of my favorite pieces in your collection. And Ruben mentions that it began appearing as a wall book at comic shops when Comic Code started publishing the series.
Yep. Yeah, I used to love all these independent books that came out like in the 80s. All the Charlton books that Byrne was drawing early on. Doomsday Plus One.
Space 1999 or something was one of them, I think. Or
which one?
Didn't Byrne draw like Space 1999?
Yep. He drew that. What was it? Wheelie and the Chopper Bunch, the Hanna-Barbera cartoon.
Yeah.
He did that for Charlton. But yeah, a lot of the artists that went on to work for Marvel and DC, you know, they got their beginnings in independent companies. And even when Neil started doing his own comic books, he was doing Ms. Mystic for Ray Cuthbert's going to tell me in a minute what Pacific, I believe it was originally published by, before Continuity started doing their own books. But yeah, Pacific Comics was putting out a lot of good books. Kirby was doing a few books for them back then in the 80s. So it was a good time to be a collector. A lot of cool stuff coming out. And that's the stuff that appeals to me. Not just the comic books, but I love the fanzines that came out back then. Yeah.
Thank you, Ray.
2000. Yep. That was another one. But the fanzines were really cool. They had amazing covers. And as Bill knows, with Amazing Heroes, they had that nice Elementals cover. And right around that same time, Amazing Heroes had cool covers. John Byrne's Superman, The Watchmen. There was a really cool cover on that. So those are kind of the things that hit the nostalgia chord for me. I used to love collecting all the fanzines, you know, Comics Interview, and there was a ton of others. And again, you had top-notch artists. Do you guys remember the Chronicle books that came out by Fantagraphics?
Oh yeah.
They had a John Byrne FF painted cover. George Perez did the Avenger one that my friend Robert Frey showed when you interviewed him. So there was a lot of great art coming out by the independent publishers back then in the 80s.
No, it was a good time. I mean, that's probably my favorite time collecting comics, and it was all because of those things. The Comics Journal covers that were out there.
Yeah.
Like my favorite was that Frank Miller Daredevil comics, you know, silhouette, just like full figure Daredevil on there that had, and it was just all black except for the DD. It was just one of the most amazing covers I had ever seen, and it was on the cover of a Comics Journal. You know, so no, definitely that was a fun time. I mean, not like when Wizard, you know, was doing their stuff. It was just, yeah. I mean, that was a good time to be a comic book collector.
Yeah, I remember being introduced to a lot of the artists through the fanzines before they even started working for the companies. For instance, Paul Smith, there was a whole article on him in Amazing Heroes, one of the early issues. It was an X-Men cover, and that was before he even came on the book. I think they had published a few of his stories in Marvel Fanfare at the time. And, you know, flipping through that fanzine, I was like, who is this guy, Paul Smith? This is amazing. You know, it not only had some X-Men sketches in there, it had like Lord of the Rings drawings that he had done for other companies. So a lot of cool stuff. And what was that fanzine that Marvel was putting out? Marvel Age. Remember that book?
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, that was the first time any of us saw Spider-Man's black costume was in that fanzine. That was way before the comic book came out. So there was a lot of cool stuff they were coming out with.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Kevin Nolan. Yeah, he did some amazing pinups in those fanzines. And I think that's where a lot of these artists got their start. You know, Kevin might have sold his first illustrations to the fanzines before he got picked up by comics. I could be wrong, but I think that's where a lot of them got their first break.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me. You know, I was talking with Joe, and he said that Jesco, and he said when he was 18, he ran into Howard Chaykin, and Howard took him on as an apprentice, and he wanted to get Joe into Marvel, but the first thing that he told Joe to do was to take his work over to Heavy Metal, and if he could get something in print there, then he could send him to Marvel. So Joe went to Heavy Metal, and they purchased a couple of his paintings to use as one was a pinup, another one was a cover, and as soon as it saw print, then Howard sent Joe over to Marvel, and then he was able to get work at Marvel. So everybody had to have a place to start. And that was probably the great thing about the early to mid 80s was there were all these different opportunities for these guys to get work into that was legitimate, was on the stands, and got them published before they could get their big break in a mainstream book.
I think that's what Marvel used a lot of their black and white magazines for as well, whether it was the Conan or the Kung Fu books. A lot of the artists got their start there, working in black and white with wash tones. Yeah, Jamie Hernandez is another one. Yeah, the list goes on of great artists that got started in these fanzines. And then that's why I get really excited when I see those originals pop up, for sale in auction. A lot of newer collectors may not even be aware of a lot of these books that we grew up with. But I mean, I used to own a Teen Titans cover that Perez had not only penciled in ink, but colored, and it was a fanzine cover, and it had the whole team on there. And that's one of my regrets that I let that piece go. It was beautiful.
Speaking of fanzine covers, there is an interesting photograph that my dad took at one of those conventions that BYRNE was at. That it was seated next to Terry Austin, and looking back at the photographs, I went in, I zoomed in, turned it around, and it turned out it was it became a Comics Journal cover, but he was drawing it at a convention in New York City, which is
Nice.
strange that he would be drawing it at a convention and then penciling it and then bringing it over to Terry to ink, and then it wound up, a few months later being a Comics Journal cover.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of these guys were working on deadlines, so they would bring it to the conventions and work right in front of you.
Right. I mean, at the time, I think I thought it was just somebody's commission or something, but maybe somebody bought it. I don't know. Other than afterwards.
Yeah, I mean, BYRNE did some great fanzine covers back in the 70s and 80s. There was that one of Power Man and Iron Fist that looked almost like a Mad Magazine parody. I forget the artist from Mad Magazine where the feet are like flopped over. That was like his style.
Don Martin.
But BYRNE drew it exactly like a Mad parody.
Right.
And then he did another one with the new X-Men wearing the original X-Men costumes. If you guys have ever seen that, I think it was Comics Interview that was on.
Okay, I don't think so.
I know, deep cut, right?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm going to see if that image is on CAF. I thought it was, but maybe not. It's,
Yep, that's it.
Yeah. Oh yeah, Don Martin style.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I thought that was like the coolest thing back in the day.
Yeah. Yeah, I've never seen that one.
And was that from Comics Interview?
Comic Reader, number 143.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, published May 1977.
Yep. Yeah, that's the type of stuff I love, just because it has like a nostalgic, value to me. But again, because it's John Byrne, it's probably out of my price range.
Yeah, that's a pretty good one. But yeah, I knew I'd seen it on Cap, so that's good.
Yeah, that's amazing. It's there. I don't think the Comics Journal cover's there though.
No, I don't believe
It's got the
so.
full team. It's the full team as well.
Well, you never know. I'll let me do a search since we're talking about it. No, there was not. Unfortunately, there was only one piece, but not that. Yeah, and Robert Mazza mentions Alter Ego too. Yeah, that was a good one.
Yeah, there was a lot of great fanzines. I mean, even to this day, when I walk into a comic store, I'm not too far from Midtown Comics in Manhattan, and not that I read a lot of books recently, but when I go in there, I always grab the fanzines. For some reason, I love reading the articles with the artists and the writers, and for some reason, I'm more interested in the process of how they created the book than sometimes the actual story, if that makes sense. I know that might be a little weird, but I don't know. I guess the way my brain thinks is I want to know how they created the book as opposed to what the actual story was.
Yeah, no, I hear you. I mean, that's it is appealing, and the thing is today, you can pretty much see these guys posting on social media why they're doing what they're doing or how they came up with their ideas, and so it's totally different. That's why we don't have it as many fanzines anymore. I mean, that was our life, our life's blood or whatever, our way to get into the hobby that we couldn't do any other way. So, yeah. Those were
so many, video casts and things like that, like this.
Yeah, exactly.
Where they're just broadcasting, live from Instagram or Facebook. Like
watching those drinking draws, right? I mean, how fun is that? To actually get to, you're getting to hang out with your favorite creators every week, and whatever special guests they're rolling in, and those are I tune in. I put them in the background all the time when I'm working, when they're on, and I'll watch the old episodes or listen to them too because it's just fun, getting to hear what those guys think and watch them work.
Right, it's so laid back. It's just like it's like real, just them hanging out.
I mean, that was the cool thing for me. Always going to the conventions and talking to the artists and the writers, like hearing the story behind the story, like how did this come about, or were you guys working on deadlines, or what changed in the story, who had an influence, did the editor make you change something? And that to me is like as interesting or more interesting than the actual comic that came out. And being around Neil's studio now and hearing stories of how this was created or that was created, I mean, that to me is like priceless. It's even more fun like than the actual book.
Sure. Hey, well, guys, it's almost been 2 hours. I don't want to end the party or anything, but I do have Christmas presents to wrap.
So what'd you get us, Bill?
I did not get you any original artwork. I can tell you that.
Pokemon cards.
I've got those coming out my ears, but none of the valuable ones. So my son, he was born in the year that Pokemon started, so he didn't start collecting the cards till like 3 or 4 years later. Because I was like, "Do you know how much these cards are selling for?" And he's like, "Dad, I came in on like the 3rd or 4th generation of the cards." I'm like, "Dang it!" Here I thought I was sitting on $500,000 worth of cards upstairs, and it turns out I'm sitting on probably about $100 worth of cards, even though there's
missed it by that much.
Exactly. But what are you gonna do, right? But listen, guys, it's been a lot of fun, and the thing I love about these is you just never know where the conversation's gonna go, right? I mean, I never would have thought we'd be talking about fanzines for 20 minutes, but no, it's good. It brings back great memories.
I apologize in advance. I
Yeah.
didn't mean to talk about fanzines for a half an hour.
No, it was good. It was great, actually. And it is something that I've actually been picking up a lot of different periodicals, the old comic buyers guides and things like that, just because I want to read through them, So I've literally set up a search on eBay for comics buyers guides from the 1970s, and whenever I'm finding them at a decent price, because I'm not looking for them to be in great condition, I just want to thumb through them, just for the nostalgia of it. And just the other day I placed an order through like my comic shop's eBay page and bought like 5 or 6 of them.
I had years and years of comics buyers guides. I mean, like piles like this, and I don't know why. I keep everything. For some reason, those got thrown away. I don't know. Years ago.
No.
Are they going for money?
Oh yeah, believe it or not, I mean, I'm happy when I can find one for about $12 or $15, because
Really?
most of them, at least on eBay, they've got them like 35, 40.
Really?
A little surprising.
We had a subscription at least 10 years.
Oh, you had a lot.
Yeah, they're all gone.
Yeah, but those, so I've been buying those and a few other things too. Just picked up a few old Wrightson catalogs that had art for sale and stuff listed in them, just because I thought maybe at some point I'll even try to scan some of the stuff and just get it up on CAF as just resources for the future. So
I was listening to one of your interviews with the other guys, and I think it was Will brought up about gurneys. Was that an auction back
it was
in the 90s? So as soon as I listened to you guys, I'm like, okay, go onto eBay. Let me see if I can find that catalog. Sure enough, had to buy it.
Right.
Stuff I had never heard of before.
Yeah, no, it's funny. I mean, it's very surprising. I was on eBay earlier today and found I can't even remember what it was called. I'll dig it up and I'll share it with you guys. But it was for it had a Wrightson cover on it, and it said it was volume 2, and I thought, what? I've never even heard of it. And so I looked through it, and it was an art for sale catalog, and it was from 1978. And I looked, and strangely enough, I think that the first issue had a cover by Neil on it, and the third issue was Barry Windsor Smith. So it looked like there were, but the name of the place is totally generic, and they showed scans of the inside, and it doesn't tell you who in the hell the seller is. So but it was all, it was really crazy. I'm gonna have to. Now I'm kind of upset. I want to like leave on a note that isn't so vague like that. I'm just gonna pull up eBay and I'll.
You know what I get a really kick out of too is a lot of the artists back in the day. They did illustrations for either a comic convention, or some of them did like art for like a comic store. That the artwork was printed on like the store's bag, or promotional items or whatever. I know Perez did a lot of them, and BYRNE did a few. And once in a while, when you come across these rare pieces, they're incredible. They usually have like 1 million characters on them, Marvel and DC mixed together. I don't know if you've ever seen any of those, but they're pretty cool.
Sorry, I've got this thing here. I'm just going to pull it up and show you. So it was called the Cartoonists and Illustrators Portfolio Volume 2. And
I have that.
But you like here, this intro page doesn't tell you anything about who this is. It has a P.O. box in Pennsylvania to mail your check to. And I mean, look at that. That's Marvel Spotlight cover. So
to see the prices on there.
I know, $45 for that Marvel Spotlight cover.
I was buying comics at that time. I don't understand why I don't remember seeing these pieces, at conventions. I don't remember.
So Ray, it was put out by Steranko.
Okay.
Yeah, don't question Ray. He knows his stuff.
Not gonna question, but that's what was bothering me, because I looked, because I think I don't know if this one had the last page. So it had the first page and the last page, and nowhere did it tell you who the art was for sale through.
We'll just call them shady collectibles.
Yeah. Little Nemo. Do you know the Little Nemo gallery?
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, they put out a couple of these same type of books.
Well, I think the one that I bought was through Little Nemo. Honestly, actually, I mean, I'd have to go back and look at the name of the seller. But
Rich, did you go to Little Nemo shop?
Unfortunately, I found out about them after the fact. I was working over in Glendale for a lot of years, and weren't they on? They were in Forest Hills, right?
Yeah, they were right off of Austin Street.
Yeah.
They actually moved across the street.
Yeah, I was working with a guy that he used to go there all the time, and I'm like, oh man, why didn't I know about this place? Like, I had just missed it.
That was my regular comic shop.
They had a lot of original art, correct?
Yeah. I have a few photographs, and you can see some pieces that are on the wall. It's
Oh,
actually
I definitely want to see that.
Mead Schaefer. They had Mead Schaefer. I mean, the son of the guy that owned it, he still does some conventions, and he has an incredible Winsor McKay collection.
The son had contacted me. It's got to be over 10 years ago, and he offered me a couple of vintage golden pieces.
Oh,
He had a Star Wars piece. I don't think it was published. It was you've probably seen it with Han and Chewie and the Stormtroopers, but it was gorgeous, and it was vintage golden, and he offered it to me and a couple of other guys, and we were like bidding on it through emails back and forth. And unfortunately, my wife at the time kind of put the kibosh on it, and I was like, oh man. I think he wanted like $2 or $3 grand for it at the time, and I wish I had grabbed those pieces. But yeah, I believe it was the same guy, the son of the owner of Little Nemo's. But yeah, that's one that slipped through my fingers.
Wow. I wonder if he has any other gold that I should.
No, this was like 10 years ago, and believe me,
something else. I don't know.
I was picking through him like, what else you got, you know? And that was it. That was like the last of the last.
Okay. Yeah.
Well,
that was a great shop.
But again, I think that was through CAF. You know, I used to post a lot of golden art on there, and people were emailing me out of the blue. So. You know, whether Bill knows it or not, he did me a great service, you know, hooking me up with these people that I probably would have never met.
Yeah. Like I said, these are the things that I didn't know was going on CAF, because nobody was contacting me offering me any great art to buy. Unfortunately, except for that guy who sold me the 2 Elementals pieces. And that was purely accidental. So that was the one and only time I exercised my CAF powers to keep the artwork for myself. And but other than that, yeah, I always refer. I get leads all the time, people telling me that they've got stuff. How do I sell it? Where should I sell it? And I'll usually start off with, you know, what do you got? And then they'll tell me, and then I'll usually direct them either to a collector that I know, you know, has that stuff in their want list, or if I can't find anybody in CAF, I'll just say, well, these are the dealers that you might want to consign through. So, but yeah, that one time the guy with the Elementals came in, I was like, I am your man. How much you want? I'm buying them.
Well, so. just to remind you, Bill, we got our scouts out there. They're looking for that D&D art by Willingham for you. Yeah. I've got a friend that's huge into. He was going to the D&D conventions when they were having them, so they've got their eyes out for you.
I'm telling you, you get me a dwarf with a battle axe, I'll be willing to part with my elemental stuff. So that's honest truth.
That sounds a little kinky, but I think
all right.
Not an actual dwarf.
Not an actual dwarf. All right. God, man. Yeah, all right. See, it's getting late. It's time to wrap it up.
On that note.
All right. Well, Ray Cuthbert, thank you so much for letting me know about that being put out by Steranko. You know, I've got his email address. I should shoot him an email and ask him some questions about that. Yeah, even a Drow elf would be pretty cool, but I still won't. I don't know. I prefer the dwarf if that's possible. Sad to say. All right, but Justin, Rich, it's been a lot of fun as always. And like I said, we'll be on again next Tuesday with Jim Warden. So we'll be talking a lot about John Byrne, I'm sure, as well. And then I don't even have the schedule up in front of me, but you know, the one thing that Anthony Snyder wanted to do, he had such a good time hanging out with me a couple weekends ago when he did that art show in New Jersey. And I guess there's another one on Sunday the 10th. And apparently he's like rented out like some other hall there, so it won't be so noisy. So he's going to be doing another claim sale during that show. So probably noon on the 10th. I haven't really gotten the date from him when he wants to start that, but he said he's going to any like good art that he gets in from now until then, he's going to like set aside and then use that to do a claim sale during the show. So something to look forward to since we still can't get the shows. But happy holidays to you, Ruben. Thanks
happy
for
holidays,
in.
everyone.
Yep,
Stay safe and healthy.
Likewise.
Thanks for having me, by the way, Bill.
Yeah, thank you, Bill. It's always a pleasure.
Hey, my pleasure. I'm glad we got to finally talk. I mean, Justin, you've been on the site for 17 years, and we've never chatted. So, yeah, awesome. But again, thanks, guys. Have a great Christmas, great New Year. And
you too. Thank you, Bill.
anything I can do for you guys, just let me know.